Hello and welcome to this episode of the Road to Rec League podcast. I'm Callum, and in today's episode we're going to be talking about all things training from the perspective of the Winnipeg Jets training camp and from my perspective as someone new to hockey. So hockey is back. There feels like there's some real excitement in the air, and it's been really lovely to go and spend a bit of time on YouTube watching some interviews, some training camp sessions. I think the Winnipeg Jets just put out their scrimmage as I'm recording this, and it was cool just to see some of the young guns and some of the familiar faces. And a certain Jonathan Taves, take the ice. And I just thought it'd be really nice to spend a couple of minutes reflecting on, just that buzz in the air. We're starting to get into some preseason conversations. There was Fan Fest today for the Winnipeg Jets, which looked like it had an awesome turnout. And as someone who's watching from the other side of an ocean, the content is limited, but I will grab everything I can. So some fantastic interviews with players, talking about what they're looking forward to in the season. And there was 20 minutes with Kevin Cheveldayoff, who, he gave his usual pretty diplomatic answers, but there's some good stuff to take in there. He's talking about young players needing to take a step in order for this team to succeed, which is all the right kind of messaging. I think now it's just how does that come into practice? Because if we look at the roster, we look at some of the training camp lines, you'd be pretty hard pressed to say that youth was the priority. And I think we'll see potentially some familiarity throughout the season from what we saw last year, with a couple of pieces changing, and all the excitement I had in the first episode of this podcast, talking about the wonders of the middle six and how it's going to all be shaken up, or there's an opportunity to do all of that. I think it would also be fair to say that there is an opportunity to keep things quite the same. And that's something we can look at over the course of the season, obviously, but I just thought it'd be worth touching on the fact that the top line's the same. The second line is Nyquist, Taves, and Perfetti, which will actually, I think, be quite cool to see how they all come together. Missing a bit of line speed, but they're all probably quite capable forwards in their own ways. So can they make up for that lack of foot speed? I would hope so. And obviously Nemestikov slots into that third C in the absence of Captain Lowry, and is partnered up with Niederreiter and Iafalo, who's obviously jumped in on that third line a bit last year, so there's some familiarity there. And obviously Vladdy and Iafalo were line mates in the first line even for some of the playoff games with Scheifele getting injured. So I think my biggest takeaway at the moment is just that sense of excitement and all the trepidation and all the, we didn't have an amazing off-season or amazing trade deadline or whatever. I actually think all of that's starting to fade, and I just feel like hockey fever's taking over a little bit, which I'm all here for, and it's nice to get stuck into some of that stuff. Preseason, obviously, just around the corner in terms of actual games. Now, watching them in the UK, a little bit more challenging. At the moment, I think I can only see 2 of the 6 games on the Winnipeg Jets website, so it's going to be having a little look around to see what else I can muster. I think they play, is it Minnesota on the weekend? I'll double check that in my calendar, but I'm pretty sure they're playing Mini, which will be a great test for some of the younger players, getting involved in the middle of a local rivalry, which is always fun. And I think just seeing people in Jets uniforms, skating around, putting some effort in, and obviously for the young guys, it's their, showcase, if you like. And for the older guys, it's just, getting the legs going, getting reset, ready for the next season. So I'm really excited to bring some perspectives of what I see over the preseason games I'm able to watch. And I really hope I'm able to get as many in as I can. If not, I'll be listening along on CJOB because I do have to keep up somehow. And the beauty of the weekend game, actually, is that so my hockey practice is on Sunday nights, and I'll be finishing up probably half an hour into the game because it's 9:30 till 10:30 this week. But that does mean for the hour and a half drive back that I will get to listen to the game. So I'll probably get to listen to the remainder of the game through the radio broadcast, which will be interesting at least. I wouldn't be able to watch it while driving anyway, so not too much lost on my part. But just thought I'd have a little section in here at the start, talk about training camp. It's in full swing. It's great to see guys out there. Some fantastic interviews available on YouTube with some of the players. And I get just a sense that there's some excitement in the air, which is good. It's nice to hear. So the other thing I wanted to talk about today, which is on the topic of training, obviously shifting away from the Winnipeg Jets and to me, is sort of what I've gone through over the last 6 to 7 weeks and what my training regime looks like, because I'm very new. And I'm sure that's quite apparent by some of the language I'm using and maybe my approach or whatever might kind of give away my naivety and my the sort of novice stature that I carry. But I thought it'd be really interesting to take a look at the things I'm doing to try and enhance my capability of playing ice hockey, essentially. So I think before I get into the details of what my actual training regime is, I am of the approach that skating is my biggest weakness, right? So in terms of hand-eye coordination, I'm perfectly capable. I mean, I get by in most hand-eye sports fairly comfortably, and something I've picked up on in early training sessions is that passing, general stick handling or puck handling, anything kind of vaguely hand-eye, receiving a pass as well, actually stuff like that, and I've not been great at shooting, but I haven't found myself in many opportunities to do that. So the general hand-eye stuff is not a problem. My feet are definitely letting me down. And that's just a process, really. So the time I get to skate is obviously limited because I am an adult with real-world responsibilities. And I also don't live just around the corner from an ice rink, because if I did, I'd be there all the time. So really, with those limitations in place and recognizing that skating is my weakness, I know that's the thing I've got to put my effort into. However, I also believe that there are going to be other ways I can create a competitive advantage for myself. And so what I wanted to do is kind of go over some of that stuff as well, because I think it's really interesting when you look at any sort of sporting endeavor or athletic competition or anything like that. So before I get into too much more detail around that, let's talk about what my week is made up of. So, like I say, limited ice time because I live an hour away from a rink over the weekends, and where I work, it's still half an hour away from a rink. And then the only local rink that does adult learn to play sessions is an hour and a half away from both locations. So, very limited ice time. And that's just the way it is, unfortunately, truth be told. So what do I do around that then? Well, every Sunday evening, I have my adult learn to play session, and that's up in Swindon. It's actually really good. One of the coaches has been involved with some GB stuff, which is brilliant from what I can gather. He's a really he's a motivating coach from what I've experienced so far, and he's definitely enjoys putting in different types of drills. And I kind of want to talk about my 3 favorite drills towards the end of this. But Sundays, got learn to play. That's an hour on the ice, stick and puck, full gear, and really getting stuck in and learning through drills and doing some conditioning. It's been really inspiring and motivates me to do the off-ice stuff even more, and I think that's a really interesting part of this process. So that's the on-ice sort of hockey stuff. I endeavour to once a week get an hour in at just public skating sessions, so going out, getting ice time wherever I can, and I'll go in there with a focus. So last time I went out, which was Monday before last, it was all about stopping and slowing down and stuff like that, because it was something I really struggled with, so I put the effort into that. I've learned how to skate backwards just by myself, on my own, doing those sorts of things, which has been really helpful. And that actually came to fruition in the adult learn to play session last weekend, where we did some backwards skating, and we hadn't done it for 4 or 5 weeks, and I was actually able to do the drill because I was able to skate backwards. I got some stick taps from from one of the regulars, and a couple of others were sort of giving me a bit of a pat on the back, which was lovely. Really nice environment, really good folk, and I'm finding that sort of throughout hockey in general. But so I use that hour to try and address specific skills. So at the moment, I'm working on stopping, skating backwards, and crossovers. And I'm just trying to keep refining that skating skill as I go. It's going to be a long process because learning something as an adult is just innately more difficult than it is as a youngster, as like a teenager or even a preteen. So I'm just having to deal with what I've got, really. And that's that extra hour, and it makes a big difference in my week. So if I look at then skating off the ice, I do have a set of inline skates. I picked up some Mars blades halfway through the year this year because basically I was doing some inline skating. I had maybe 10 hours on inline skates or something, and it was really beneficial for getting my balance. But I then went to the ice, and my weight distribution was so different, and I was really struggling to adjust my weight distribution more than anything else. So did a bit of research, found Mars blades, and thought, well, okay, if I can't get ice time that often, I can at least get skating time of sorts. So I picked up some of those, which was a really worthwhile investment for me. That really helped elevate my capability of getting onto the ice. I mean, just for context, I've spent 20 hours on ice at the moment, and I went on on ice for the first time in January. But there's a really on-off dry spell at the start, and now I'm in a routine where I'm doing 1 or 2 hours a week every week for the last 6 weeks. So you can see that's kind of built up the majority of my ice time, actually. But that being said, time off the ice, getting the skating reps in, working on crossovers, working on skating backwards, working on stick handling, because I've got a green biscuit as well. So I'll do some skating drills, some conditioning stuff. It's really good, those skates, for working on the same muscles that you work on the ice. And that was another thing I found, that I'd go and skate and I'd be like, oh, I'm getting fitter, I'm building up the right muscles. And then I'd get onto the ice and I'd be like, whoa, my calves are on fire and I've done 15 minutes, because the muscles you use to balance on the slippier surface and regulate your sort of motion and everything, it's a little bit different. And it was fun to learn that. But yeah, so once I switched over to the Mars blades, big difference, really big difference, really proud of that. So glad I made that purchase and investment. Unfortunately, we're about to head into the season of no outdoor activities in the UK. So it will rain even on sunny days, which wipes out all of the surfaces on the ground. And again, the nearest like roller hockey option for me is still about an hour away. And frankly, it's less enjoyable for me than being out on the ice. So I've just got to try and find that balance. Doing what I can with what I've got, I think, is pretty much the motto of all of this. So that's all my skating, whether that be ice or otherwise. In terms of just general stuff, I'm really watching what I eat. So nutritionally, I've been pretty well disciplined over the last 6 to 7 weeks. And this sort of second half, I guess, is the bit I was talking about at the start, trying to create a competitive advantage for myself, knowing that my skating is going to be a disadvantage. So the things I look to for that are strength and conditioning, and then just general, compete levels, to borrow a phrase from Scott Arneal. But strength and conditioning is something that I've been taking sort of as seriously as I can, given that it's not something I've done a lot of in the past. And I've got to balance that with working 40, 45 hours a week, and working hard at work and driving a bunch. So nutritionally, I'm in a good spot. I've lost a good chunk of fat over the last 6 weeks. I'm down a couple of kilos lately, which is great. And I can feel the difference. I am eating a relatively high protein diet for recovery purposes. I'm trying to get in as much fruit and veg as I can, just for these sort of... it gives me a little bit more energy and a little bit more pep in my step, which is nice. I'm drinking as much fluid as I can. So really just trying to focus on doing the right kinds of things, and eating my food at the right kinds of times to support my my sort of activities. So I'll go on to my off-ice activities as well in a sec. But I basically am just trying to say that I'm setting up myself nutritionally to recover and to lose weight as best I can. Once I get down to a point where I've got a slightly more favourable body fat percentage, then I'll probably work on increasing muscle mass and strength and stuff like that. But I just want to get myself down a little bit on the spare tire, and also give myself, it's a bit motivating as well to know you're getting a bit lighter and things are getting a bit easier. And I'm working on sets of, I guess, muscles as well while I'm doing that work. I'm just not going ham on it. So accompanying that sort of nutritional lens is the off-ice fitness stuff. So every Saturday morning, I hop on the rowing machine for half an hour. Now, that might not sound a lot, but it's an old rowing machine. It's very high resistance, and it's a bit notchy. So actually, half an hour, I'm sweating by the end of it, and my muscles are aching, which is a really good sign. That's it's a good ache. It's not a bad ache. So I'm putting some energy into that every Saturday. So Tuesday or Thursday, I'm going to be doing burpees, or I have done. So I did a Navy SEAL style burpees a couple weeks back, and it basically crippled me from the waist up. I couldn't reach for top shelves. I was sort of standing up rather than at like a 90-degree angle, like a 70-degree angle, because my core was so stressed from 10 minutes of Navy SEALs, which are the 10-count burpees. Absolutely brutal, but I can see where that's going to help me build out a set of muscles that I haven't worked a lot. And my core is hands down my weakest part of my body. So building up core strength, building up some legs with the rowing, and working on my upper body strength as well is only going to help with puck battles. And then on Wednesdays, every Wednesday, I run 5K. The variety in what I do is helping keep me focused on doing these things. So yeah, 5K run on a Wednesday while I'm at work. It's really, really good, actually. Bit competitive, get stuck in. I've gone from hanging off the back to competing with some of the quicker people in the space of just 7 weeks, which I'm really encouraged by. And I think it's because I'm doing the running alongside the skating and alongside the rowing and the burpees. And I go for walks as often as I can to get out and get fresh air. So I think all this sort of, I'll use the Dave Brailsford British cycling phrase, but the aggregation of marginal gains. I'm making small steps in everything I'm trying to do, and I'm starting to see some of those benefits across the different activities I'm undertaking. So in hockey, I'm way fitter than I was at the start. I was gassed. 2 sessions in, on the second session, I almost fainted when we came off the ice. I was so tired. I couldn't quite believe it. Whereas now, I'm finishing a session and I've got energy. Now, not lots, admittedly, but enough to get undressed and dressed again. and I'm not quite on the verge of fainting, but I'm putting in a stellar effort, getting sweaty, getting tired, but I'm able to do that. And I think from a conditioning perspective, that's one of the areas I look to myself and go, okay, right, I'm not as good of a skater. Well, guess what? That means I've got to work twice as hard to go half as fast. And that's just something I've got to get used to for now, and something I've got to live with and work around. So I'm going to be twice as fit, so that when I work twice as hard to go half as fast, I'm working comparatively as hard as everyone else. And that's kind of the mindset I'm trying to approach it all with, really. Really lean into the things that I have control over, or more control over. So ice time, less control. But running, fitness, nutrition, that I've got a lot more day-to-day control over than I do sort of getting ice time and being able to kit up in my ice hockey gear and crack on. Because driving 150 miles, because that's where the nearest rink is that's available on a Tuesday night, is impractical, frankly, and nigh on impossible. So I've got to work with what I've got. So that's what I'm really trying to leverage, and I'm really enjoying that, actually. And like I say, I'm seeing the benefits bleed into my game and bleed into my general levels of fitness. And we can talk about physical fitness, but in terms of just wellness as well, I've got a lot more of a pep in my step. I feel energized day to day. I wake up in a better, I won't say frame of mind, but with the energy to go and do something, which is great. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time touching on that Sunday adult learn to play sessions as well, because I think it's maybe it'll be a bit of insight into the training I do on the ice. So I've obviously talked a bit about nutrition off ice and the fact that I spend time on the ice once or twice a week. During those adult learn to play sessions, there's more detail on the blog I write as well, which is of the same name, Road to Rec League. But we go through this 1 hour process, and basically it's split into some drills at the start, and then it usually finishes in a bit of a scrimmage. And those drills have varied from skating drills, stick and puck handling skills, passing. We've had shooting, but not an awful lot of that. We've had general battling, like compete drills. And they've been probably the most fun for me. And I just wanted to touch on my 3 favorite drills so far. And I think this is something that I can obviously introduce to this podcast as I go, as I do more of these sessions. I got another one tomorrow, but as I do more of these and learn more about, I suppose, those drills and what works for me and what doesn't work for me. But I wanted to touch on my 3 favorite, and I'll do it in descending order because it's fun to do things like that. So my 3rd favorite drill is called kitchen sink. And basically that's because there is everything but the kitchen sink in 1/3 of the ice. And it's lots of head up, lots of stick handling, and there'll be sort of anywhere between 10 and up to 20 people in 1/3 of the ice. And scattered around, loads of cones, loads of those little tiny hurdles you jump over as a kid, lots of triangle-shaped cones, bits and bobs, obviously 20 people skating around, plus you're then trying to hang on to a puck and work your way around the ice. And I think it's a really great drill for keeping your head up, stick handling, and just spatial awareness in general. Then as you progress through this, obviously you start off a bit slow, get a bit quicker, and towards the end, a few people, have their pucks taken away, and they've got to go and battle for pucks. And I actually really like that. So I'll say my favorite thing at the moment about being on the ice in those ice hockey scenarios is I love battling. I love that 1-to-1 sort of fight for the puck. I'm really relishing those opportunities and really enjoying it. So when it came down to that, it was my first week actually, and we did something very similar, but it was full ice and it was a bit more relaxed. Someone just came by, like a really experienced guy, saw it was my first week, massive stick lift, stole the puck, passed it back to me and gave me a bit of a look. And from that moment onwards, I decided that no one was going to make me look that silly again. I wasn't getting rob blind anymore. So I put a lot of effort into figuring that out and understanding that process. I've pulled off a couple of stick lifts in games, one of which was to prevent an empty net goal, which was great. So those kind of battles I'm really enjoying. And so when they introduce that again, I'm learning the skill of having a firm stick so that people can't just take the puck off me, like taking candy from a baby anymore, which is brilliant. Body positioning to protect the puck. Using that general hand-eye to be able to put the puck in positions that other people aren't going to be able to get hold of quite as easily. I really enjoy that process. And so that drill is definitely one of my favorites for the fact that, to begin with, you're just getting that feel for the puck as well. And I think as a beginner, that's the thing you don't get exposed to a lot. So you can go to public skates, you can get out and use a green biscuit. It's not quite the same. I will say the work I put in off the ice over the summer with the green biscuit made a massive difference for how quickly I think I've been able to pick stuff up in that respect. But it still isn't the same. It doesn't have the same weight. It doesn't have the same feel. So I love that drill for that purpose. And also a little bit of competitiveness starts to leak out, which I do rather enjoy. And will become apparent as to the next two drills why I quite like that. So my second favourite drill is one-on-one battles. We'll have them. Now, again, I don't win many of these, so my skating really lets me down. But I love having to try and beat someone. Just in my nature, just how I am. It's like with the running on a Wednesday, I'm trying to beat the person in front of me. Even if they're quicker than me, that's my objective. And I love that. Absolutely love that. So when we go and do 1v1 battles, it'll be an empty net set up in, like, I guess, a corner of the rink, but there's sort of each four of the corners has a net set up. And basically a puck gets dumped in, either behind the net, to the side of the net, whatever. Two people skate after it. Objective, win the puck, put the puck in the net. And I was pretty quickly realizing that my skating is really below par. So of the 40 adults that turn up, I'm probably the third or fourth worst on my feet. I mean, I can get around, but that's probably about it. So I recognized a lot of people are going to beat me to the puck. So I actually started taking a bit of a different approach, which was sprint towards the shooting lane rather than the puck. I knew they'd beat me, but as long as I could get into the shooting lane before they got there, I'm going to have to make it slightly harder for them. They're going to have to go around me. They're not going to have an empty net after they win the puck. And it's just going to prolong the process a bit. And I really enjoyed that, learning those shooting lanes, learning how to get myself in the way, putting my body in the way. And then occasionally, when you do that and they're a little bit like, well, I've got to go left to right, if I can get them on their heels, there's an opportunity for me to get stuck in there. And I have realized that, again, when it comes to puck battles and stick lifts and stuff like that, I love getting stuck into that. And so I've won my fair share of those, which has been really fantastic. So when the 1v1s came down to, actually, I've got body position here, I was coming away with the puck far more often than not. My problem was getting body positions quite difficult when you are slightly less capable on your feet. So loads of room for improvement. I'm far away from God's gift to winning puck battles, but I thoroughly enjoy them, and those are the kind of environments I'm finding myself thriving in. The last drill that sort of touches on a very similar theme then is called Protect the Bucket. And I thought this was brilliant. So I was really nervous about it when we actually lined up to do this. Long and short of it is there's a coned off section of the ice. I don't know, probably 10 meters by 10 meters, say. Probably a bit bigger than that, actually. And there's a bucket. And there is a very small, handball size ball. So like I think volleyball, but half as big. And basically the attacker gets the volleyball and they have to place the ball in the bucket. The defender has to prevent that person placing the ball in the bucket. And this is just, you can talk about it as a skating drill, because if someone can outmaneuver someone, then they're probably going to win. But I see this mostly in my head as a compete drill. Again, it's man against man, or woman against man, or man against woman, or woman against woman, depending on who's playing. But it's one-on-one. It's a fight to see who can get the ball in the bucket. And lots of people were using edge work and stuff to try and find their way around and wrong foot people, which was obviously not on my sort of list of things I was capable of, certainly not in my wheelhouse. So I had the other approach of basically skate at the guy and then dig in and just try and use some thigh strength to barge my way past. Unfortunately, I lost an edge, and it's okay. But I got pretty close, actually, against some people that were definitely more capable than me generally at skating and hockey. So I got damn close, and I was really proud of that. And it was the same with defending. It was put body in the way and just try and push them away and fight off where I could. But I really enjoyed that, and I would love to do that drill on a regular basis, because it inspires the side of me that I enjoy about sports, that kind of competitive edge, the desire to win, the will to win. And for me, as someone who's, as I've hopefully made quite apparent, low down on the learning curve here. Those are the kind of things where I'm like, okay, I might not succeed. That's fine. But if I can take a step, and the next time we go and do this drill, I've taken another step, and the next time we come and do this drill, I've taken another step, that's what I want to see from myself. And while that's not winning, that's progress. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to get from this process. Progressing towards the point where I can join a rec league team. And then eventually, hopefully, progress through that rec league team from being the net negative liability to a net positive, member of the team that's valued. And that's kind of what I'd love to work towards over time. So that's it for this episode. I just wanted to talk a bit about training, because training camp's in full swing for Winnipeg. And obviously for myself, every week is training week because I've got such a long way to go and so much ground to cover. So I'm having a whale of a time doing it, though. Genuinely, full speed ahead, loads of energy in it. And I can't wait for opportunities for tryouts and actual sessions with rec league teams towards the later part of this year and into next. Until then, I'm going to keep going with my routines, and I'd love to keep you guys updated as listeners as I start to take these things on. So if every now and again I might break down a new drill or some new nutritional things I'm working through, or actually just some general progress updates and how good has this week been for me. But I thought to break it down in a slightly longer format for this episode would be nice, just to take you through the steps I'm taking. Of course, if you've got any advice, I think this is now being put onto YouTube, which is great. So stick your comments below if you are watching this on YouTube. And if not, then Spotify is the other place where this is up at the moment. I am looking into how to get this onto Apple Podcasts as well, but I am having trouble with my account verification process. I'll work through that, don't worry. But without further ado, to keep this format slightly shorter than other podcasts, I will call it there. Thanks ever so much for listening. I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye for now.